There is a kind of airdrop farming where a single deposit is supposed to earn you rewards in 3 or 4 places at once. You put your money in one door, you get a little receipt token, and that receipt goes on to earn points somewhere else, and then somewhere else again, each promising its own future drop on top of the last. This is restaking farming, the meta that quietly ate the airdrop space for a stretch, and the pitch is intoxicating. One pile of capital, several airdrops. The catch is that every layer you stack rewards on is another layer of risk stacked on the very same money. I run real proxy and cloud phone farms for a living, and I treat airdrop farming as operations rather than a lottery, which means I pay close attention to the signals that are hard to fake and to the risks that are easy to ignore. None of what follows is financial advice, none of it predicts a token or a price, and nothing here promises you a drop of any kind. It is simply how these programs measure people, why stacking rewards quietly stacks danger, and what actually holds up when a restaking protocol finally decides who its real depositors were. So start with what restaking actually is, briefly and honestly. When you stake ETH, you lock it up to help secure the base chain, and you earn a modest reward for doing so. Restaking takes that same stake position and lets it back extra services as well. Additional protocols that borrow your capital as security and pay you something extra for the privilege. In most cases, you never touch the raw position directly. You hold a receipt for it, a liquid restaking token, an LRT, a tradable claim on the ETH sitting underneath. That receipt is the piece that makes everything that follows possible. Then Scampia become mini submissions. Neavidavitis that makes everything that follows possible. Then here is why the format took over. That receipt token is composable, which is a fancy way of saying you can pick it up and deposit it somewhere else. So you take the LRT you got for restaking and you drop it into a lending market, or a liquidity pool, or another protocol entirely, and that place runs its own points program too. Now one deposit is earning in the staking layer, in the restaking layer, in the issuer of the LRT, and in whatever you fed the LRT into next. Points stacked on points, stacked on points, all from money you put in once. And it sounds like free multiplication, which is exactly the trap. Each extra stream of points is also a layer of extra exposure on the same underlying ETH. Another smart contract that can fail, another set of assumptions that can break. The points look like they add up cleanly and independently, but the risk underneath them does not add up, it compounds, because it is all resting on one position. You are not collecting 4 separate bets. You are stacking 4 claims on a single pile of money. So what does a restaking distribution actually reward, once you strip away the noise? Because the whole thing runs on deposited capital held over time. The honest measurement is some blend of how much you committed and how long you left it there. Call it capital time, size multiplied by patience. And this is genuinely harder to fake than a free tap or a cheap swap, because the capital is real and the time is real. You cannot script your way to a large position held for months, you can only fund it and sit. But there is still a Sibyl reality here, and it hides in how people chase the multipliers. These programs lean hard on referrals and tiered boosts, extra points for inviting others and for crossing deposit thresholds, and that tempts an operator to split one bankroll across many wallets to game the tiers and refer himself. The trouble is that the moment you fund a swarm of wallets from one place, you draw a funding graph, a plain picture of where the ETH came from, and that picture ties every one of those wallets together at the root before they have done anything at all. Now the defensive part, explain the way I always explain it, from the outside, and honestly, a restaking protocol and the analysts who design its distribution know that one operator will be tempted to fake a crowd of depositors, wallets funded from the same exchange withdrawal, deposited in the same narrow window, all crossing the same threshold and all pointing back at the same referral parent. That coordinated block reads as precisely what it is, one entity wearing many hats, the same way a cluster of trading wallets gives itself away anywhere on-chain. I am describing how that detection works, so you understand the terrain, not handing you a method to slip through it. And this is why farms of near identical deposits tend to get discounted, often wholesale. Real depositors are messy. They put in odd amounts at odd times. Some hold for months and some pull out after a fortnight. Some add more and some never touch it again. 100 wallets each funded with the same round number on the same afternoon, crossing the same tier, referred by one parent, do not look like 100 careful investors. They look like one operator counted 100 times. The clustering reads the shared funding, the identical size, the synchronized timing, and the referral pyramid, and sets the whole block aside. Dininteresant abufiatu, it chanted 100 times. A points balance is a private scoreboard the team is keeping. A tally it may later convert into a token on whatever terms it decides, weighting, capping, or discounting it however it likes. A huge number glowing on a dashboard is a promise about a decision that has not been made, and treating it as money already in hand is the cleanest way to lock real capital for a season and receive very little at the end. There is a risk unique to this corner that you cannot wave away, and it is called slashing. Restaking works by letting your capital back extra services, and backing something means you are on the hook if it misbehaves. If an operator you are effectively underwriting breaks the rules of a service it secures, a slice of the stake behind it can be cut as a penalty, and some of that penalty can land on you. You are not simply parking money to earn points, you are quietly guaranteeing the good behavior of things you probably never examined, and the deeper you stack, the more of that you have signed up for. The receipt token has its own fragility too. A liquid restaking token is only worth the ETH behind it for as long as the market agrees, and that agreement is not guaranteed in a panic. When everyone reaches for the exit at once, an LRT can trade below the value of the assets underneath it, and anyone who needs to sell in that moment eats the difference. The token is liquid right up until the instant you most need it to be. And then there is the loop, which is where people get truly hurt. Because the receipt token is composable, you can borrow against it to buy more of the underlying, restake that, take a fresh receipt, and borrow against that in turn, spiraling one seed of capital into a tower of stacked positions to multiply the points. That loop multiplies every risk I just described at once. The smart contract risk, the slashing risk, the gap risk on the receipt, all levered on top of each other. It is exactly the fragile structure that unwinds violently when sentiment turns, and I am flagging it as a risk, not recommending any of it. A timing lesson from the rest of airdrop farming carries straight over. Capital time accumulates and you cannot backdate it. A wallet that rushes a large deposit in the week a token starts being rumored has exactly that much history behind it, however big the number looks from that day forward, while a position that was quietly committed months earlier carries the weight that the late one simply cannot manufacture. Being early here is not a trick you perform at the last minute, it is capital you actually had at risk before anyone was farming for the reward. The risks are real and worth stating without spin. A restaking protocol can run for a year, hold your locked capital and your patience, and never issue a token at all. It can issue one and draw its eligibility lines somewhere that leaves you out, or change its multipliers late, or decide the exact behavior you committed to no longer counts. And any single layer in the tower you built can be exploited or can fail and take the whole stack position down with it. This is real capital at real risk, over real time, against a decision you do not control. Read the actual rules of each program too, because they genuinely differ. Some weight the raw size of what you deposited, some weight how long you held it, some go out of their way to penalize the obvious splitting of one pile across a swarm of wallets. Those are different worlds, and assuming the wrong one can waste a season of locked capital. I will not tell you a given protocol or receipt token is safe, legit, or a scam as a blanket label, because that is not mine to declare in the abstract. Read what the team publishes about how it measures depositors and judge it on what it shows you. Treat the whole thing with plain ops discipline. Keep an honest record of every layer you are stacked into, from which wallet, how much is locked in each, what each one is actually risking, and whether you would still hold it with no drop at the end. Then read that record without sentiment and prune it. A layer you entered purely for points, whose risk you never really understood, is exposure to unwind. The operators who do well here are not the ones stacked 10 layers deep across a swarm. They are the ones holding a couple of positions they actually understand. What actually protects you comes down to the one rule I hold on to through all of this. Take only a position that would make complete sense on its own merits, even if no token ever arrived. Capital committed to a primitive you genuinely understand at a size and the risk you would accept with no reward attached is indistinguishable from a real long-term depositor for the simplest possible reason: it is one. There is no swarm to hide inside, no funding trail to explain, no referral pyramid to account for, because you are holding a position as yourself. If my only reason to stack a fourth layer is the drop, I think hard about the 3 risks I just took on to get there. So the reframe I would leave you with is this. Farming restaking airdrops is not a scheme to loop leverage across a swarm of wallets until the points look enormous. It is a decision about how much real capital you would genuinely commit to a primitive you understand, at a risk you would accept anyway, held plainly as one person. Which restaking layers are actually worth the risk, how these programs tend to weight real deposits, and the trackers I use to log what is locked, where, and what each layer exposes me to, are all written up in full at airdropfarming.org, with no hype and nothing there being financial advice or a promise about any drop. Subscribe if you want the operator view of this restaking approached as risk you actually weigh rather than points you blindly stack, and the honest caveats left in every single time. Next time we take one restaking position from a single deposit, through a full season of simply holding it and understanding each layer under it, and watch how real capital genuinely committed earns standing far more reliably than any levered swarm looping the same seed of money through the same tower in suspicious unison.